Hello.
Let's get started. So, Yiti Joye, you have raised your China's largest online learning platform, and you've raised altogether about $140 million in funding. You have about 14 million registered users.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what inspired you to start this up. What role has education played in your life so far?
Oh, I think education has basically changed my destiny. I think it's changed everyone's destiny here. When I was 16, I had my previous 16 years of education in Beijing. I think of education very broadly. So I grew up in Beijing for 16 years. And when I was 16, I got a full scholarship from a guy in Hong Kong. So he gave me a lot of money to study in the UK and the US for the next 6 years. And I went to A-levels in the UK and undergraduate and graduate studies in the UK and US. So I kept asking him, what was he expecting of me? How should I pay him back? And at his 50 years birthday in Hong Kong, he invited us to come and watch a film with him. And the film is called Pay It Forward. So that would be one of the biggest lessons learned in my life so far. And I think setting up 一起作业 is just one way of expressing that. It's my way of paying it forward, spreading the love that I've been received. And that's what education has given me, and is what I want to give back to the society, paying it forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I imagine that Chinese culture plays quite an important role in this. You know, education is very important for the Chinese. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I think education is very, very important in any community. Without education, we are no different to pigs or cockroaches. But I think, in particular, in China, education is very important because it is not only considered as a path to wisdom and enlightenment, it is also a way to change one's destiny and a way to change a whole family's destiny. The education market, even just the private sector alone, is over 400 billion US dollars per year. So that's a huge market. And in K-12 alone, which is the market we are focused in, is a market of over $200 billion. And with over 200 million students, competing for a few university spots, it's an extremely active and extremely important market in China. Yeah. Yeah.
And did that make life easier for you when you were starting up? Did you find people were more willing to buy your ideas, or does that just mean there are far more people competing with you and it's a much harder environment to succeed in?
Oh, well, I think as with any big market, as with any competitive market, nothing is easy. And there are many, many players in the education market in China. But even the biggest education company called New Oriental, which is founded by Victor Wang, who was here yesterday, they have only covered less than 1% of the market. So the market is very, very fragmented. So the way we approach the market is by thinking very differently. So my prediction is that education will constantly be diverse. And there's a huge difference between educating a child at the age of 3 and educating an adult at the age of, let's say, 30 or 50. There's a huge difference between learning piano and learning math. So I think education services will always be fragmented. There is an age group difference, there's a subject difference, there's a region difference. So we have positioned us not as an education service provider for a particular subject or a particular age group. We have positioned us as a channel. So we think that homework is the best entry point to be making a social platform that connects teachers, students, and parents. And that would be the best entry point to make a three-way social platform for those groups. And then we'll be offering and promoting the best education services and products all over the world. So I think we are, in some way, we're not competing with any education company, either here or anywhere else. We are their partners, with the teachers' partners and with students' partners. And that's kind of what 一起作业 means, doing homework together.
Yeah.
We want the kids to grow in the environment of love, to receive the best education, so that that's our mission, and we help them do that, to make learning beautiful. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk in a little more detail about what it means to be on the platform. What does it mean for a student to be registered on the platform, or a teacher, or a parent? give us the details. What happens after you register?
Yeah, so we are a very different approach. Most internet products would offer to one specific user group, and it's very easy for the user to basically do everything. We have three groups of users. So the teachers will need to register on our platform first, and the teachers will upload all their students on our platform in a real name basis, organized in real classes. And then the students will get their parents to sign up as well. And so we have real teachers, real students, and their real parents all sign up. And the first app we have offered to those users is homework. So the teachers, before we existed, homework in a broad sense has existed for over 1,000 years. In mainland China, since 1949, it's existed for over 60 years. But before, there was no online form of homework. So paper-based homework had many restrictions. For example, if you want to train, let's say, listening, speaking in English, it would be very difficult for a kid to interact with a piece of paper. So the teacher would assign homework on our platform, and all the students, they can also go on the internet and log in and finish their homework. And then we'll send automatic reports to the teachers, the students, and the parents on their mobile so that they know exactly what the result is for the homework and what they should do next.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I understand you use something called photoacoustic technology on your platform. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? And is that very specific to something like language learning?
Right. Well, I think I could explain the technology in greater detail, but that would bore the audience, especially given it's after lunch. But I can definitely explain the application of the technology. So it's basically a speech comparison technology. So before, all the English teachers in China would think that training the listening and speaking for the English for the students is a very, very important aspect. And most people would agree with me that the English education in China has not been very successful in the sense that many students could not communicate in the language. They just do test prep. So teachers would leave listening and speaking homework before anyway, asking the students to go back home and read the textbook 3 times in front of their parents. The parents will then sign their signatures. But that's not really that useful. So we have offered a substitute, which is basically the computer will say, welcome to RISE. And the student can repeat and say, maybe, welcome to RISE. And the computer will, using the technology, identify that and say, welcome means 欢迎. It should be welcome, not welcome. So say it again, welcome. The student will repeat and say, welcome. The computer will interact and say, perfect, welcome to RISE. And the student will say, welcome to RISE. So that's basically what the technology does. So we started with that technology and listening and speaking homework for primary schools 4 years ago. But now, we are in a time where technology is just growing so fast. It's innovating so fast. So many technologies can be applied in an education setting. But what we have found is that in schools, at least in mainland China, in K-12 schools in China, the technology is something like 20 years behind. So, what we have found is that there is a huge opportunity to apply any kind of, technology-based learning to combine technology and education. So not just in listening and speaking in English, but in pretty much everything. Yeah.
So I understand initially you were far more focused on language learning, but you've recently expanded into other subjects.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing in terms of other academic areas?
Sure. Yeah. So as I said, we think of us more like a platform. So if I make a comparison with like Taobao or Tmall, where we sell all kinds of products. We want to sell mostly products related to education in K-12. So we don't limit ourselves by subjects. We made the first app by ourselves. It's a little bit like instant messaging for WeChat. They made their first app by themselves and to acquire users. So we started with English homework to acquire users, and as you said, we currently have over 14 million registered students. But our vision is to connect all the users in the world so that we'll be able to offer all kinds of education services, content, and products. Either they are online or offline or O2O or hybrid, whatever it is, whether it's math and English and physics, or it's art, music, theater, physical education, whether it's to do with test prep or whether it's to do with teaching someone about integrity or with creativity, leadership. I think we can offer all kinds of these things in the future. So by ourselves, we have launched primary school English homework, primary school math homework, And we are expanding into junior and senior high schools this September, starting next semester. But I think there's a long way to go from here. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, on my phone, I have access to a lot of social media, and I'm registered on a lot of social media, but it doesn't mean that I use it every day. And so how do you keep teachers and students and parents all engaged and using your platform on a regular basis?
Right. Yeah. So it's actually very, very difficult to keep children engaged for a learning product. Most internet products would look at what people naturally like, and whether it's because you're lazy or whether you're greedy. The internet product will play that character and make sure that people are engaged. And the most successful products are like that. Education products, in some sense, given current situation of education, is the anti-nature. I think it's actually naturally for people to be curious about the world and to be wanting to explore, and I think that's what learning is all about. But currently in schools, at least in mainland China, it's not the case. So if you ask a student, whether you like English, whether you want to do math homework, most likely the answer is no. So the way we look at that is this: there are two stages. The first stage is that you have to look at the reality, which is that most students hate learning, and if you give them an online product without supervision, then they can just leave, right? So that's what most internet products for learning is behaving at the moment. So we have many peers who are also making products for kids based on learning, and their retention, for 6 months maybe is less than 1%, after registration. So we think that for any education or any process of passing knowledge, there are two roles. One role is something like the coach or the teacher. Another role is like the assistant coach or the assistant teacher. Now maybe use tennis as an example. So the coach will teach you how to serve. The assistant coach will practice with you something like 10,000 hours serving. So we think that in K-12 as well, there is a teacher, and there is also assistant coach. And we position ourselves as a homework system that's the assistant coach to help practice, to help the teachers, and to give the teachers tools and resources and content. So in product sense, there's a pressure system and attraction system. Okay. Currently, the percentage ratio is about 80-20. So 80% the students remain on our platform is because the teachers assign the homework, so that they have to complete the homework, whether they like it or not. But we make the homework really a lot more interesting than traditional paper-based homework. So that in our users, there are actually lots of students who ask their teachers, when do you assign the next homework? I really want to do this new chapter. But I think in the future, the percentage will be reversed, so that a teacher-centered learning will become student-centered learning. Because currently, I think that the biggest problem is that we deliver uniform learning to all the students, regardless of who this student actually is. It's like industrial revolution, standardized product production. We look at the students as if they're like a nail or a fridge. But actually, they're all human beings. They're all very different. Every hair on every student is different. So they shouldn't have the same haircut. But it would be different because the teacher-student ratio is very low. But with technology, it would be possible. So every time the student does homework, we collect lots of data. And we know the students. We know what they like. We know what they don't like. We know what they're good at, and we know what they're bad at. So I'm really hopeful on this idea of adaptive learning. It's a dream of over 1,000 years. Chinese have always had the saying, 因材施教, teaching the students based on the students' innate character. And that's our vision as well. So that we think once we are able to actually deliver individualized education, based on the student's ability, then we will be exploring the innate curiosity, intellectual curiosity of the students who want to explore the world by themselves. And by that time, we can actually make products that naturally engage the students.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said your competitors' retention rate is something like 1%. What's your retention rate?
It's actually a secret, but I can say that our semester retention for a 6-month period is over 90%. Okay. Yeah. So and we are still improving it. We think in theory it can be close to 100%. Yeah.
Okay, and you had quite a lot of support from the Chinese government for what you're doing.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. Well, I think it's important to work with the government because for elementary education, government plays a big role. Most of our clients are state-owned schools. So we have a constant and very close relationship in terms of research projects with the Bureau of Education, with the Bureau of Press, and with the Bureau of Informationization. And we work with all levels of government, not just on the national level, but also on the provincial, on the city, and on district level. We work with many schools, because I think eventually the assessment for the success of education currently is still the university entrance exam for K-12. So although personally I think many things matter, the students' happiness matter a lot. The students' interest in education matters a lot. But what the parents see and what the schools see at the moment mostly is still whether the students get a good score. And so we work with the government very closely on that as well. So we increase the students' interest, we help the students' capability, and we also help them get very good scores. And we can prove that using data. And the governments are especially interested in looking at this data. So before, teachers leave homework every day as well. But the government had no idea, what's happening in a particular district, for example. But now we have big data reports to be shown to the government so that they know exactly, which school is doing okay, which teacher is doing okay, what this district's weakness is, so that they can also make amendments and make improvements accordingly. So I think using data and using technology to help education is a trend that is happening everywhere, all over the world. Yeah.
Okay. So it seems like, on the one hand, you're collecting a lot of data, so you have these big batches of data that you can report to the government, and on the other hand, it sounds like it's a very personal product. How do you match those two things up, and how do you avoid sort of going, well, all the students in this school like to learn this way? I mean, presumably the government could look at your data and say, well, this is the method that works best for all the kids in this school. Why don't we just do that all the time? Because that is cheap, easy, and efficient.
Yes, yes. So I think it's to do with capability. My personal view is that internet has got 3 stages. The first stage is so-called one-to-many, like Yahoo and like Sina. They have one piece of newspaper that is digital, and they offer the same piece of newspaper to all the users. The second stage is somewhat like Google and Baidu. So whatever keyword you put in the search box, you get a piece of newspaper by yourself. And every search word has a headline. It has one top entry. So that's a many-to-many stage where basically many users can have many newspapers. But I think the next stage would be a many-to-one stage, so that the whole world of information and intelligence and wisdom will be somewhere on the cloud. But using big data and cloud computing, we'll be able to compute for every individual, every moment, what exactly you want to know. So I mean, there are lots of experimentation already on many websites with big users like Amazon and Alibaba. They're already calculating what you want to buy next. So for education, I think it's extremely relevant because most users are actually lost. Even teachers, they are lost. They don't know exactly what they should teach next for their students, their users. The parents are more lost. They constantly want to get advice from teachers and other parents. How I should educate my kids. But they're not doing it based on science. They're doing it based on so-called religion or experience. But we think that the whole human history is a hybrid growth from religion to science. I'm not saying one will replace the other. I'm just saying that data is playing a bigger and bigger role. So I think for education as well, that we will be utilizing the experience and the wisdom of all the good teachers and all the good educators, but we'll be making it in a scientific way, so that using these technologies, we can then generate individualized solutions to the students. Currently, we are not there yet. We can divide the class into something like 3 groups, and we can give those 3 groups adaptive learning solutions for a particular academic subject. But I think in the future, it'd be very possible to give each individual student their individual solutions. And that will be the future of education. I think that will be really a beautiful world. And all the students, when they grow up, they'll be like entrepreneurs, doing the things they love, finding their happiness and their destiny by themselves. And that's our vision. Yeah.
Well, that's the dream. Well, I think we've learned a lot about the opportunities in Chinese education today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy.
Thanks.
Thank you.